All right, welcome to the class build live Q&A. Just to give people a little introduction if they don't know what's going on here. Essentially what we're doing is we're going over some of the things that we'll be doing in the class on March 9th, 12 p.m. Pacific time. And what I wanted to do is just kind of get an idea about what you guys thought would be important to cover. The pineal gland is sort of, in my opinion, a really mysterious subject because you get on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or wherever, and you start scrolling, and people are always talking about opening and activating the pineal gland. But how often do they actually explain what that means? Like everyone's like, oh, we got to open it, we got to activate it, and even the ideas of decalcification and defluoridation. I barely ever hear an explanation on how to do that. I don't ever hear anybody say what it actually means to open and activate the pineal gland. So that was a big inspiration for why we're doing the full length class, which is about 3 hours. So it'll be almost 2 hours of presentation. And then there'll be about an hour dedicated, half an hour to an hour dedicated to question and answer at the end of the class. So quick shameless plug. If you're interested in learning everything you'd ever need to know about the pineal gland, how to actually open and activate it backed by science and reason and rationality, consider going to the link in the bio. If you're on YouTube right now, it's a little harder. You got to copy and paste the link. But if you're on TikTok or Instagram or X, the link is right in my bio. And then the class is pretty much right at the top almost, and you can sign up there. But it's everything. And you get a 15-page guide on top of that, which is a daily routine guide. It's going to tell you everything you need to do every single day, and you will open and activate your pineal gland. How you doing, Dustin? What's up, Mitt, Yaman, Kim? Glad to have you all here. Yeah, so basically what we're doing is I'm going to go over a little bit about what we're going to be covering in the class, but I really want to hear from all of you. Things that you think should be in the class, questions that you have in general about the pineal gland that you're confused about. I understand that I don't do a lot of lives anymore, so people might want to jump in and talk about other things that we haven't discussed in a while, but just try to keep that to the second half. We're doing this for about an hour, so if you can, focus on those pineal gland, DMT, Kundalini type questions, circadian rhythm, melatonin, serotonin, dimethyltryptamine. Even we can get into the astral projection and lucid dreaming a little bit, and spiritual gifts. So you have a lot of options of things to talk about and flesh out with me. And then if you guys really want to talk about like UFOs and conspiracies, just try to save it to the latter end of the of this presentation. So if nobody has any specific questions just yet, I'll start trying to go into detail a little bit about what we're going to be covering in the class. But anytime I see a question, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, and we'll be pulling TikTok up in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'll pull those questions from there. So the most important thing to understand about the pineal gland is actually something called the circadian rhythm. So first off, pretty much all of our pineal glands are calcified and fluoridated. Reason being is because we were pumped full of fluoride almost since birth. For a long time, the baby formula that so many of us were raised on, especially us older generations, millennials, Generation X, boomers, there was so much fluoride in the baby formula that for a long time parents were instructed to not use tap water because the tap water also had fluoride, and that much fluoride was actually toxic, poisonous to the baby. So that gives you an idea of how much fluoride we were getting. Now, here's the other complication. Again, if you're a millennial or a Generation X, you know how much milk and calcium was pushed, right? So calcium has, milk has calcium, and it also has, I think, phosphorus and phosphates. The phosphorus and phosphates work against the calcium. So when you drink cow's milk, you kind of like give yourself the good stuff and then take it away again. On top of that, the reason they say the pineal gland is calcified is because it's literally calcified with calcium. Why does this happen? Two reasons. For one, the fluoride attracts the calcium. So the more fluoride that gets stuck in the pineal gland, the more the calcium wants to be there. And so it's this sort of vicious cycle that becomes exponential. Secondly, you hear, calcium builds strong bones. Well, why is it going into the soft tissue? Because you need magnesium, K2, and D3 in order to synthesize calcium into the bones. And so they pushed calcium, they marketed calcium, they marketed milk, but they didn't talk about the importance of getting sun for D3, right? Getting K2 through fatty fish and fish oils, et cetera, et cetera. Getting your magnesium through like dark green vegetables, these types of things. And so there gets to be this point where you wonder how they could make so many accidents happen, which all end up blocking, closing, and deactivating your pineal gland. And so we'll be discussing a little bit in the class too the strange coincidences that seem to completely block your what I believe is your spiritual center, and what many people believe the spiritual center is, whether it's sages and ancient axioms or credible doctors and researchers today. Many of them believe that the pineal gland holds a special place for what we consider to be the spiritual experience. We got one here. I won't be able to be here for long because I got school in a few hours. But could you explain at the end of the course what you would know about the afterlife? I always wondered, and how far are you with the book? Great question. And how far am I with the book? We're about 60 to 70 pages in, and I'm looking to make it 150 pages altogether. That sounds like I have a long way to go, but I also haven't been writing a lot. And when I'm really going hard on it, I can put out 10 pages a day. And so if I spend, really hard dedicating, 3 to 4 days a week, I can get it done, the rough draft done in a month. And so I would say 2 months is probably what it's going to end up being. And we've got a couple cool things coming up for new meditations and classes for the seat of the soul, for the pineal gland aspect. And so I think we'll be able to curtail or sort of end that class semester with the book, sort of treat it like a textbook or just a guide manual. Now, the afterlife. Yeah, so this is actually really, really closely connected to pineal gland, because I don't know if anyone's read DMT, the Spirit Molecule by Dr. Rick Strassman, but there's a chapter in there that goes over um, the strange occurrences with DMT and several different experiences. And we're also have another question. I want to know if what I eat makes a difference. Yes, absolutely, and we'll discuss that too. Pull up the TikTok while we're doing this. Okay, so Dr. Rick Strassman explains, and this connects to the afterlife thing. Dr. Rick Strassman explains that there's several strange coincidences with the DMT molecule. For one, DMT is produced at 49 days after conception. So you conceive a child with your significant other. 49 days after the child is conceived, they have a massive DMT dump. The child does. At this point, the 49th day of conception is also when the child becomes anatomically male or female. 49 days is also what the Buddhists believe it takes to go from one life to the next in the reincarnation cycle. Now, not to get too much into reincarnation, because I don't believe in one way or the other. I'm not against it or for it. I just don't think there's enough evidence for me to pick one. But it's very interesting that a child becomes anatomically male or female on the 49th day. DMT is produced, and they believe it takes 49 days for a child, for a life to incarnate. So it's almost like at the 49th day, the idea is the DMT opens a window, the spirit comes in, and then the spirit becomes masculinized, feminized. So it's even more interesting, because at birth, the child then again produces DMT. And I think the mother may produce DMT at birth when she's giving birth as well. Just give me 1 second. We're pulling up the live on TikTok. It's going to be a weird angle. Also, DMT is produced at near death. So when your body thinks, this is the idea. The reason I think DMT is being produced at near death is because it's when the body thinks it's going to die. DMT is also produced at death. And so I think the similarity there is actually the same thing. It's when the body knows or thinks that it's going to die, it produces DMT again. Now, again, we have this molecule being produced at a time than what we would believe the soul exits or enters the body, right? And Rick Strassman elaborates on this idea that what if DMT is sort of like this biochemical equivalent to the spiritual window between the worlds? Everyone that's joining TikTok, just to let you know, what we're doing is what's called a class build. So we've got the class March 9th, 12 p.m. Pacific time, this Saturday. If you're interested, check out the link in the bio or check out the website. There's lots of information on it. What we're doing here is just getting some feedback from everyone here. Everyone's asking different questions about, things they'd like to know about the pineal gland and making recommendations for what we should add into the class. I have the outline written out, but I want to make sure it's everything that everyone wants it and needs it to be. And so that's anybody that's in the TikTok. if you have the energy to type. If someone else asks what we're doing here, maybe hit them up with a sentence. Same anywhere else. If I don't see the messages, and I'll try to repeat that, but I don't want to spend that much time doing that. Okay, so let's keep going with DMT in the afterlife. So the other time DMT is produced is during intense meditation. Intense meditation. You actually can produce DMT endogenously. Again, the pineal gland metabolizes DMT. Now, not to get too off track, but this connects. The pineal gland is in charge of the circadian rhythm, which means it metabolizes serotonin during the day, melatonin when the lights go out, when your pineal gland gets the signature, hey, the sun's down, the lights are out, it's time to start getting sleepy, and then DMT during dreams. The pineal gland is responsible for metabolizing those three, the three of the most important neurotransmitters that regulate mood, sleep, dreaming, and well-being overall. And now going back to this thing, there seems to be this concerted effort to poison that gland, which guides so many things. They call the pituitary gland the master gland. The pineal gland is definitely a runner in that race, and maybe should be considered to be the actual master gland. So back to the intense meditation. Terence McKenna one time brought DMT to be smoked by a Buddhist monk. The Buddhist monk smokes it and he says, oh, wow, I just went to what's called the lesser lights, which is like the last place you can go before your spirit leaves your body. Again, adding more conjecture, but maybe even a little bit of evidence that DMT is this window molecule that may be what allows us to transit between the worlds, so to speak. So to get more centered on this idea, what do I know about the afterlife? My opinion is, now I don't believe anything in particular. That's another thing about me, and I think a lot of people would think that I have a particular belief system about where we go when we die, but I actually don't. I've studied everything, right? Reincarnation, going to heaven. Everything just turns dark when we die, and the thing I would lean on is that there is a sort of metastructure of consciousness and awareness, right? And so like rocks are slightly conscious, bugs are conscious to a level. Oh, thank you very much. That's a good one. I like that. Animals are a little more conscious, right? Orca whales and chimpanzees, even a higher level of consciousness. And then human beings access even higher level. And that's just because of the organized matter in here, which creates the phenomenon of what we call consciousness. Like the way we can use language and communicate with each other, the way we can use our hands to manipulate and build objects, that is a part of, those are layers that support the idea of consciousness, but it's just a word. So when we die, what I think happens is this metastructure of awareness, which is like taking on all the experiences of all things and building its own consciousness, we fall back into that. And it's sort of this larger spirit. And then a piece of that spirit again pushes itself into our reality. It's sort of kind of like the Gnostic tradition that light gets caught into a web, and the web is our reality. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this with the DMT, though, is it suggests something even greater. And if you look into Christ's Gospel of Thomas, and he discusses this idea that we can individuate our own spirit. Meaning, I don't think souls reincarnate here. I believe they carnate here, which means I think that we can create a soul which lives on, which when we die, it's almost like we solidify our personality so much, we get rid of the shadow, we harden, or like we crystallize our consciousness so that when we leave our body, it doesn't just get shot out and spread out into the awareness. We can hone it in. And I think that's what the Merkaba light body is. So if you forced me to pick one, it would be that reincarnation in general is just the redistribution of God consciousness. It's like a pool, right? A bank. And all the people living took a loan from that bank. And then when they die, they give that loan back. But if they go through the process, of Christ consciousness, they can actually earn that money as a grant that they keep in the afterlife and become separate individuated consciousness. So God kind of enjoys the idea of having a community of ascended masters. And I think this is where all that mythology comes from. Order of Melchizedek, ascended masters, Merkaba light body. I think it's all connected to this idea that we can sort of crystallize our own consciousness. But it doesn't have to happen, because if we don't do it, we just get redistributed. We pay our loan back to the bank, and then we get recreated in maybe into anything, into grass, into another rock, into a turtle, into another human being. Not so much like we're bad in this life, so we have to come back as a worm, or we were good in this life, so we get to come back as an angel. More just like it's more randomized based on the meta structure of the hyperdimensional geometric lattice that is the substantial structure to our reality, or what the monks would call the greater lights. Okay, so let's go to the next question that was asked. I'm going to try to go in order. Remember, we're on IG, YouTube, and TikTok at the same time. So I'm trying to bounce back and forth. But yeah, anything associated with pineal gland, DMT, the circadian rhythm, right foods to eat to decalcify the pineal gland, et cetera, et cetera. So the next question comes from Instagram, and it is, I want to know if what I eat makes a difference. Absolutely. And so this is something we're definitely going to be covering in extensive detail in the class. There's a couple things. There's things you shouldn't be eating to help the pineal gland. And then there's things you should be eating to detox, nourish, right? Because on top of the fact that the pineal gland is calcified, peace be upon you too, brother. Thank you. On top of the fact that the pineal gland is fluoridated and calcified, and we have to remove those things, right? All that time that it's been like that, the blood flow has been obstructed, the electrical flow has been disrupted, and so it's atrophied. And so we have to do things to strengthen the muscle again. And the first thing you need when you're bodybuilding anything is the nutrition, the fundamental nutrition, okay? And so, there's obvious fundamental nutritions, like anything that's going to help you build soft tissue is going to be good foods. But most importantly is tryptophan, because the tryptophan is the same tryptophan dimethyltryptamine, right? And so that's really the core nutrition. It's an amino acid. And really, you should be trying to get your entire amino acid complex. I recommend taking a supplement and then also getting a bunch of foods, like a bunch of superfoods that have several amino acids. Hemp powder and chia seeds are great examples of. Hemp powder, I believe, is a complete protein, which means it has all the essential amino acids. And chia seeds comes pretty close. Sunflower seeds is another great one, et cetera, et cetera. So, for instance, when you eat, I'm going to take it to the furthest extent. We might all be eating vegetables that have fluoridated water. It's almost unavoidable. Like you don't go to the grocery store and see unfluoridated vegetables, right? That's not a thing yet. Hopefully, it will be in the future. And hopefully we'll just transfer over completely. But you see, it's pervasive in everything. You go get a coffee from the coffee shop. Let's say you're getting all your water spring water, or you're doing reverse osmosis and you've got no fluoride in the water you drink. Well, are you getting coffee from the coffee shop? And how are they treating their water? Right? It's pervasive. It's everywhere. So the first thing about eating is removing as many sources of fluoride that you can. The calcium, that can be improved in the following ways. Get the normal amount of calcium. Here's something really cool about calcium. The vegetables that have calcium in them usually look like bones. Pretty crazy. Celery, broccoli, and there's a couple others. They look like bones. It's wild. So look up vegetables that have calcium in them, first off. Because what you're also going to find is those vegetables usually have at least one of the other vitamins and minerals you need for the entire cycle. Because if you're just getting calcium, it's going to get stuck in your soft tissue. With vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium, each one of those plays a different role. One of them, make sure the calcium runs all the way through the blood system and gets to the marrow. Another one ensures that it's pulled away from the soft tissue when it gets stuck there. That's K2. Another one makes calcium absorbable with the bones. Magnesium, K2, D3. So you need, when you're getting your calcium, you shouldn't be getting something that's fortified with calcium, right? I do make a recommendation in the guide. If you're needing to get calcium, you can find fortified versions, but you have to make sure that you're getting the magnesium, D3, and K2, or you're just pumping too much calcium that doesn't know what to do. It needs those other three. And why do we find it in dark leafy green vegetables? Most of this stuff is because that's what we're supposed to eat. It's so supposed to be 60 to 7% of our diet is dark green leafy vegetables, right? The other 25% is supposed to be fruits. And then 5% probably nuts and grains, right? So it's like we have all these health issues. And then they say, oh, tomatoes fight cancer, or, broccoli reduces inflation in the body. But it's like, that's not, I'm sorry, inflammation. But that's not really what it is. It's that all the stuff we're eating is poison. And the broccoli and tomatoes is just a regular diet that makes us what we're normally supposed to be. So a big thing about diet is reduction first. Reducing the sources of fluoride, and just reducing, because heavy metals, the calcium, that's going to disrupt all those things too. So first reducing, and then defluoridation and decalcifying. And we go over that in the class. We're going to go over it in the class. There are specific foods that unbind fluoride from soft tissue. I believe, and there's many other people who believe this, and I believe there's some good research to support that heavy metal detox in general is helpful to defluoridation and decalcification, because the bonded fluoride and calcium is very heavy. It's a heavy salt, but it's heavy like a heavy metal. And so there's certain heavy metal detoxes that will act upon that heavy salt as well. But sometimes you need a special unbinding, which you find in tamarind, curcumin, and I believe there's one other I've been researching lately, and we'll talk about that in the class again. What kind of water should we drink? The best water to drink, the best water, and the easiest, besides the one hard part, is spring water. Water that you'll have access to. And make sure it's tested. Because, go to most springs, if you have access to it, and a lot of people know about them, they're tested, right? Because the cities or the states don't want to deal with lawsuits that the people are being poisoned, and they allow the spring to be open. So most of the time they are tested, but just double check. You go to findaspring.com or .org. It's findaspring.something, and it'll show you the spring in your area. You'll be surprised how many springs there actually are. The reason I say this is the number one is because you're getting water that's not fluoridated, and it's already mineralized the way water's supposed to be, the way we've all evolved to drink water. Now, when you do reverse osmosis or distillation or a Berkey filter, the thing about fluoride is it's so heavy that you need a really advanced filter or filtration method to pull it out. But because it's so heavy, you've already pulled all the lighter stuff out, which means you've pulled a lot of the good stuff out. So you got to remineralize the water over time, because what that will do, it'll sap all the good stuff out of your body. Because if the water's really pure, because of I forget the name of the scientific term, but it's the idea that things want to equalize. And so, like, if you have water that is pure, and then like you have like salt water next to it, the salt will move into the fresh water quickly because it wants to equalize and balance out. When you're running that distilled water, or that water that has no particulates in it, it's going to pull the salt and the other electrolytes and other minerals and vitamins from your body, right? And so it'll deplete those things. So you want to make sure you're remineralizing your water. I suggest using cell salts, putting a couple of those little boops in there. And then there's actually remineralization drops that are great as well. So if you do reverse osmosis or a Berkey filter or distillation, especially distillation, because distillation is perfectly pure water with nothing in it. Reverse osmosis might be the same way. You definitely want to remineralize the water, right? Because then you'll be doing yourself a disservice in a different way. Yeah, Kim. And so the next thing, like when mine was really far away, I had seven 7-gallon jugs that I had, and I pop in the car, 49 gallons. That was a month. That covered me for a month, okay? Because I used it for cooking and everything. And so a 3-hour trip a week sucks. But if you load the car up with, a decent amount of 7-gallon jugs, which they sell at Walmart for like $15, So think about that. You're making a $15, let's say you're buying 4 of them. You make a $60 investment one time, and then you're only paying the gas. And you don't have to buy spring water. You don't have to have a ton of plastic bottles that are just going back into a junkyard or floating in the sea somewhere. $60 one time, and it's just the gas to drive to the spring. And you've got the greatest water available for life. So I highly recommend that. Okay, let's see. Let's see if there's any more questions here. That's perfect. 45 minutes away ain't bad. You know what I mean? Like I said, if you're making the trip once every 2 weeks, it's not so much a pain in the ass, right? So boiling isn't going to do much for you. That's another thing. I'll put a note. Thank you for that one, because I did not put that in here, and I think it's important to explain because I've seen a couple of people ask about boiling. Boiling doesn't do anything for you except kill any kill living things, and maybe you can denature some other things that might be toxic, but you also might turn something toxic by boiling it. Like, it's not going to kill you. But boiling is only something like if you're if you're in a situation where you have a boil water advisory in your city, right? That's why you should boil your water. If you're out in the wild and you're wanting to get water and it looks relatively clean, but you're a little nervous about what might be in there, so you don't get like dysentery or some other stomach problems, you boil the water to kill any living biotics, right? But at the same time, there's things in there that are alive that are good for you, right? That we've evolved to take on, right? And so you kill those things off too. It's kind of like when you take a antibiotic, right? Well, what is that doing? It's killing the biotics that you're trying to get out, but it also kills the good biotics, right? So you can feel kind of crappy for a while after taking antibiotics, and you want to take a probiotic afterwards to get the good stuff back in. Kind of the same way with the boiled water. Yeah, you're making yourself safe from catching dysentery or something, but you're also taking out the good stuff. So boiling kind of like it takes the life out of the water that's actually really good for you, right? So boiling is just to ensure that you don't drink any like bacteria or something like that. All right, what else we got here? Oh, Mount Shasta, that's cool. That's a wild place, by the way. I don't know if you've ever read the Missing 411 books or watched the documentaries, but interesting place. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, let's discuss a little bit about, as I'm searching for questions here, let's discuss a little bit about the ideas of opening and activating. You know me, you know how I feel about what I call toxic spirituality. Oh yeah, what about fish? That's big. It's a good question. It's like, where are you getting your fish source from? On one side, are they in fish farms? Where are they getting that water from? But fish in general, liver oils are fantastic for you, for tryptophan, which you're going to need. So the way we open this class, again, class is March 9th, 12 p.m. Pacific time. That's 3 p.m. Eastern time. If anyone's interested, and even just checking it out, looking at the details, make sure you click on the link in the bio. The class is actually set up close to the top. It's one of the close links, or just go on the website, become a member. By the way, anybody who becomes a member, which is free, takes 60 seconds. If you message me, grass tastes bad. Grass tastes bad. I'll give you a few cosmic credits. It's a few bucks on the website that you can later use for whatever you want. So if you're interested in just a couple bucks for purchasing power on the website, just become a member on the website. It's thecosmicman.com, and then message me. Grass tastes, I said good, right? Yeah, grass tastes good. The reason I say that is because grass actually has tons of DMT in it. If a chemist could figure out how to synthesize DMT from grass, it would be the most abundant hallucinogen on the planet. But you didn't hear that from me. All right, so I have a real issue with a large chunk of the spiritual community online, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, wherever, because I find a lot of people, I don't want to start any drama here, but there's a lot of people who are insincere. They're jumping into the game to try to take advantage of people. There's a lot of people starting out in the spiritual movement. You know what I mean? It's not saying people are naive. It's like you're opening up a whole new part of your world, and you don't know where to turn. And I think a lot of people, more people, I'm discovering than I ever thought. I really thought. I thought most people were sincere in the movement. Seem to be knowingly taking advantage of a volatile space, because I hear tons of people say you got to open your pineal gland. You gotta activate your pineal gland. But no one explains what that means. They'll give you a meditation. They'll give you an affirmation. Fine. Yeah, those things work. But what does opening mean? What does activation mean? Okay. If the pineal gland is part of our body and we're evolved to work, you shouldn't have to open or activate anything, right? The only thing you have to do to open your eyes is open them. When you're awake, when you wake up from sleep, you don't even have to think about opening your eyes. It just happens. So why should you have to actively try to make your pineal gland open? Or why should you have to activate? You don't have to activate your liver. Thank God. It just works. That's how the pineal gland should be. So why are we needing to open and activate? So this is where we take things out of the realm of mystery. The pineal gland being closed is the psychological element. The pineal gland being activated is the physiological element. Okay, again, we're going to be going into great detail in the class. To activate the pineal gland is to remove fluoride and calcium and reintroduce the right amount of tryptophan so that serotonin, melatonin, and tryptophan or dimethyltryptamine can be synthesized in the other areas of the brain so that the pineal gland has enough of those things to operate the circadian rhythm. Lots of people here. I would imagine 90%, me included sometimes, when I'm off my schedule, off my routine for taking care of the pineal gland. You overall have a more negative or down mood. You have trouble falling asleep. And many of you can't remember your dreams, or the dreams are just wacky and don't make sense and they're never meaningful. You've noticed that it's become worse over time. I'm sure I'm talking about 90% of the people watching right now. 90%, right? That's because your pineal gland is not getting what it needs. That's because it's not activated. But it's not activated because it was already deactivated, right? You didn't have to activate it from your birth. It's just like the opening of the chakras and all that. I burst people's bubbles all the time, so I'm not going to stop doing it now. There's no need to activate any of it. The only thing that I found that is a true activation is the Kundalini awakening. And again, I think that's more because we're unpoisoning ourselves. Okay? The only thing that is ascension level is this idea of Christ consciousness, enlightenment, Jungian individuation, where you're taking your consciousness to a whole new level. Right? We won't get into too much detail about that, but think about the idea of, a lower animal. I don't like using that word exactly, but everyone knows what it means. Is just conscious, but guided by its primal urges. The gazelle isn't contemplating its relationship with the lion or the wolf, right? It's just, it eats, it grazes, it keeps its eyes up to make sure everything, predator chases it, it runs, it gets scared, and then it shakes it off and it goes about its day. The chimpanzee or the orca is being conscious of being conscious, right? So it's becoming a little self-aware. It understands that it can communicate with human beings. We're starting to develop ways to communicate with these animals, which is incredible, right? And there's this contemplation, and they're learning and doing new things like using tools. Human beings are there. They're conscious of being conscious at a higher level. When we get into this idea of being conscious of being conscious of being conscious, which means to become the observer. So not only am I aware of myself being conscious, I don't have to get up and grab a bite to eat. I can think about, why am I wanting to eat, right? That's the second level. The third one is you're observing that. You're observing the entire mechanics of that. Okay. And that's that first stage of enlightenment where you become, let's say, spiritual. Then there's a fourth layer, which is hard to explain, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. The reason, the reason that I say all this is because, again, with the chakra stuff, with the pineal gland stuff, this is all normal, natural physiology. And we need to stop putting it up there on that pedestal the way, traditional Christianity has put Christ on the pedestal. We need to start realizing it's like, oh no, this is normal stuff. Because when we do that, then we realize how pernicious and malicious the systems have been to poison us. We don't make it about some giant staircase that we have to climb because we're lowly and we have to ascend. We make it like, no, we've been getting mistreated and poisoned. We have to fix the problem. I don't think many people understand what the world would look like if we just weren't poisoned. I don't think people would understand the spectrum of light that you would see. The amount of people that would have spiritual gifts if there just wasn't fluoride in the water. And we had calcium, magnesium, K2, and D3 in normal amounts. I don't think people understand how different the world would be just based on that. So when we put it into the realm of like this far off thing that we have to like spend years meditating, then we're not putting the responsibility and the accountability, one, in the right place with these companies and governments who have fluoridated the water and pushed calcium as got milk and all this nonsense. One, we're not holding them accountable, and two, we're making ourselves do the extra heavy lifting that we don't have to do. That's also not going to get us anywhere. Meditation is great, and there's a really good reason. We're going to explain about blood flow, electric flow, and how what I call neurosomatic feedback and awareness can actually you can mentally affect your physiology. It's important. The meditations are absolutely important, but it's also important to understand how and why they work. But even more importantly is actually fixing the gland so it even does anything in these meditations, right? We need to put the condemnation at first with these companies, with these governments who decided to do this, knowing damn well what they were doing. We need to see what it looks like when we're just getting the right amount of nutrition. And then we go from there. But when we make it into this, like, woo-woo, yah type spirituality stuff where everyone just says open and activate, but don't tell you what it means, we're just going to be running around in circles forever. And I'm really hard on this because it's so important. Most of this stuff is completely rational, reasonable, backed by science, right? Except we don't get that. If you go online and research what I'm talking about, like I have 5 articles listed on the free resource, the Pineal Gland Protocol, which you can also find in the link in bio. Totally free resource. Totally free resource. And it gives you 5 distinct articles, scientifically researched, peer-reviewed, meta-analysis of all the things I'm talking about right now. The science is there, it's just they don't talk about it, right? So it's really important for us to take it out of the realm of mysticism. There's levels of it that are the mystic, right? When you start getting into spiritual gifts, when we start talking about the DMT production can allow you to see past the visible light spectrum. And that, for instance, schizophrenia is just an imbalance in DMT production. Seeing things, they're probably seeing things that are really there, just the rest of us can't see it, and they're dumping too much DMT during the day. That should be getting dumped at night. There's actually good research that shows that people with schizophrenia often have benign tumors, benign pineal tumors. Anybody who has a benign pineal tumor, don't worry, okay? Because this is all easy and reversible. I don't want to get in your head like, oh, what if it happens to me now? Like, you'll think yourself into it, because schizophrenia is mostly a social disease anyway. But there's an aspect of it that's an overproduction of DMT at the wrong time. It's called dreaming awake, literally. Right. And so if we start learning more of this, the science of this, we'll be able to peel away a lot of these layers that are just having us all spin around in circles. Again, big part of what the class is going to be about. All right. So let's see if we got any more questions here. Thank you very much for all the compliments, guys, and the gifts. Thank you very much. Breath of Fire is great for a lot of different reasons. The Breath of Fire is great for just, in general, a good charge to the body. The specific meditations that we're going to be recommending One I actually have on the website. A second one I'm in the middle of working on. Are focused. Okay, so there's pineal gland meditations. Big thing we're going to be talking about is why they work. Like breaking down to at the cellular level, science-backed evidence why pineal gland meditations work. And to give you a little taste of that, there's something that's starting to be discovered that was already known by mystics and monks for thousands of years, that you can think your physical body into different states. Anybody who does hands-on healing knows that if you start thinking about hands-on healing, or if you see someone who's not feeling well, your hands will immediately start throbbing and get hot. That's from training, right? That's from the training that you've done, where you've done the rub the hands, you sit there, you meditate, you imagine your hands getting hotter, and they actually do, right? Other people have felt your hands, whether because you have it on their body or because they touch your hands, because you're, wow, check this out. So it's not just you losing your mind or something. No, there's an objective. Someone else is verifying, wow, your hands are really hot right now. How is that possible? You have mentally increased heat and blood flow to a specific part of your body just by thinking about it. So it's the same idea with the pineal gland meditations. You're doing the same thing to your pineal gland. And so what would make your hand heat up and pulse like stronger? Increased blood flow, increased energy or electric flow through your nervous system, blood flow through your vessels, electric flow through your nervous system. So we have the ability to control that. Also, science has proven that the more we meditate, even more so with certain types of meditation, we increase our ability to affect and control our parasympathetic nervous system. Parts of our nervous system that are basically closed off to our conscious mind, that another part of our consciousness takes care of for us. Now, it doesn't allow us to take control of certain things like, like breathing all the time unconsciously and heartbeat, thank God. But it will give you abilities over your parasympathetic that you wouldn't normally have. One of those is being able to increase blood flow and electric flow, and what we might call chi flow, to various parts of the body. So the pineal gland meditation works very simply. Ask and you will receive, seek and you shall find. You think about that part of the body, and some part of your mind knows exactly what you're talking about. Not because you're saying pineal gland, because you're thinking about the middle of your brain where that is. And there's this beautiful architecture language that's not human English language or anything like that, that understands symbolically that when you think of the pineal gland, your subconscious or whatever it is, knows what the exact point in your body, what you're talking about, and will send the energy and blood flow there. It's as simple as that. It's the same thing as if you think about your finger long enough, it'll get itchy, or it'll heat up, or it'll buzz, or it'll vibrate. You're doing the same thing to the pineal gland. And that's really what, there's a bigger lesson to learn here. It's not just that the pineal gland meditations work, it's that you can do this for anything. Then when let's say if you work through everything that we have in the class, or you work through everything we have in the 15-page guide, the next level is you're going to understand that you can have a varying degree of impact on the external world outside of yourself. Then we're getting into like abracadabra magic, but we'll touch on that in the second class, which will come months down the road. But that's the next important part. This is why I've been focusing so heavily on the pineal gland, because you all know I kind of took a break from the culture war. It's too much right now. It's too much. We won't go into too much detail about it. But since then, I've been asking myself, what can I do that I'm not going to like piss off too many people. I'm not going to get in the way, but I'm still going to be doing the good work. It's like, well, I can talk about the actual like step-by-step path of spirituality, right? And I said, what's the first step? Pineal gland. It's the first step, right? Everyone in spirituality should be talking about the pineal gland first. And all of us should be working on that. Sorry about the freezing on TikTok, guys. You know how it is there, though. I don't know I probably talked about the introduction of fluoride into our tap water too much. I hope it does get better, but it's not the internet, because I mean we're chilling on all the other ones just fine. So you know, TikTok is sometimes. So let's see if there's a couple more questions here. We're getting close to the end. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys just let loose for the last 15 minutes if you want, because I don't see any new questions. I do see a lot of responses, and just, you know, like people saying, yeah, like it's really important. So thank you guys for that too, because that's helpful, because it helps me to know that, okay, these things that we're going to be covering are the right things to cover. But any last minute questions you want to ask about the pineal gland? Feel free, but if you do want to pull away and maybe ask a couple weird questions for the last 15 minutes, I'm more than happy to entertain anything spooky or interesting or mysterious or strange. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. Is it's DDSOing the lives, and I'm not even sure if it's TikTok that's doing it. I think it might be some third-party players, because TikTok in general, right? I almost have 500,000 followers. If TikTok really didn't like me, they just wouldn't let me have an account, right? So I think it's actually even a third party. So someone says my telepathy is kicked in some and connected to, and I'm seeing orbs all the time. Yeah, these are going to be symptoms when the pineal gland opens up. And again, like, people will say this or in support of it, and then other people say, "Oh, that's crazy talk." But let's talk about the facts. The pineal gland has several organelles that are nearly identical to the organelles we have in the eyes, except the pineal gland is on the inside of the brain. But that means it's a receiver of electromagnetic energy. So what electromagnetic energy is it receiving? I think it's receiving it on the outside of the visible light spectrum, because it's not seeing the visible light, but it still has a receiver, and it's evolved to receive. So I think that's how the telepathy works, is the pineal gland, which is receiving electromagnetic frequencies from other people around you. And because you guys have a shared dictionary of whatever language, the pineal gland is able to translate that electromagnetic, like a radio, into your mind. And I think so. I think that, like, you know, hopefully, if things go in the right direction, there'll be a scientific explanation to telepathy, and it will involve the pineal gland. Mark my words. Yeah. So, Nico, David, that's what this discussion is about. We're doing a live class. One more plug, and I won't mention the class again, but we are doing a live class March 9th, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 hours. That's 2 hours of explanation. Don't worry, there'll be chances to take breaks, right? We're not going to hold it for the whole 3 hours nonstop. 45 minutes to an hour. We'll take a nice little, you know, bathroom break, coffee break, 15 minutes. 10, 15 minutes. We'll do another 45 minutes of presentation, and then we'll leave about 30 minutes to an hour for live question and answer. I'm willing to stay for an entire hour if the questions keep rolling in, but we'll do a 30 minutes, because I'm sure I'll have 30 minutes of it. And if people still have questions, we'll stay longer. But we're going to be talking all about how to decalcify, how to defluoridate, what activation means and how to do it, how important tryptophan is to your pineal gland health, like little things that most people haven't heard about. Like, how many people say you need tryptophan for your pineal gland? How many people have you heard say that? I'm not bragging. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a lack of good information. And so we're hoping that we can give that good information to you guys. Yeah, UV spectrum, infrared, maybe, possibly, right? How to quickly decalcify the gland. Ooh, you want to know? That's a little treat I'll give you guys. How to quickly decalcify. Now, remember something. We didn't touch on this. I'll answer that question, but first I want to touch on one more thing. So if that's activation, what I just explained, the physiological aspect, there's also a psychological aspect. That's the opening. There's a great movie by Wes Anderson that just came out called Asteroid City. Really good. So it's my favorite movie for the past year that I've watched, I think. And there's one scene in there. It's really cool. It's kind of like avant-garde, I guess you might say. And it's kind of like a scene within a scene within a scene, but that's like the whole movie anyway. But there's a bunch of people saying you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. And it's connected to this idea of falling asleep in life. But that's what the pineal gland being closed is. You psychologically, spiritually fall asleep because you're a kid, you have your imaginary friends, you believe the world's an adventure, you get into school, you hang around other kids who have been, propagandized and brainwashed, and they start picking on you for having these eccentric, happy thoughts and beliefs. In school, you're told to not ask questions. This closes you psychologically in ways that you need in order for you to translate the experiences you're having in the pineal gland into something intelligible that doesn't scare the shit out of you. So another part of schizophrenia is we don't as a culture have a dictionary for the spiritual experience. Another thing that's on the pineal gland protocol, spiritual awakening or psychosis. It's a great TED talk where he talks about this. Most schizophrenia is a social disease because people are having real, legitimate spiritual experiences, and then they try to talk to a world that doesn't have a dictionary for it. That's what closing means. Not only individually, but as a society, we do not have a culture, a language, a dictionary for spiritual experience. If you went to a shaman and you told him all these things, he'd be like, "Oh," and he'd have names for it. He'd describe how they work. He'd tell you if it's a good thing or bad thing in your life. He'd tell you what you should associate yourself and what you shouldn't associate yourself with, he or she. There's a dictionary and a culture. This guy explains in the TED Talk that the kids that have the same sort of symptoms in the shamanistic tribes go on to be the tribal leaders. The kids that have it in Western culture end up going to psychiatric centers. Except the tribal leader is completely well adjusted. And the person in the psychiatric center is completely out of their minds. What's the difference? The culture, how they're treated. Has nothing to do with the individual. Has to do with where the individual is in society or in the cultural context. So what it means to have a closed pineal gland just means that you don't have the operating system to translate the real natural experiences of the pineal gland, like seeing ghosts and spirits or seeing orbs, or literally being able to have a conversation with God or Mother Earth, Great Spirit. When you don't have the education or understanding, when you were punished as a kid because you told your parents your friend was real and moved something in the house, slowly over time you lost the ability to articulate it, or you lost the courage to. And then over time, so when we have those glimpses, let's say a bunch of fluoride gets knocked off here because you have a lot of extra tamarind in some exotic food that you eat, and the next morning you wake up and there's a 9-foot angel sitting by your bed for 3 seconds and it fades away. Who are you going to tell that to? And when that was real, that was realer than real, right? Who are you going to talk to about it? How are you going to talk about it if you don't have the dictionary anymore because you forgot it when you were a kid? So you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. So we were made to fall asleep, psychologically, spiritual in this way. And so now we have to wake up. We don't have to wake up because it's a thing we always have to do. It's because that part of ourselves was put to sleep by the culture that we live in, and in some ways by the foods. So it's another important thing to push. So then, I said all that because there was a question. Yeah. So last thing we'll cover. Listen, you do this at your own risk, okay? Because it's going to be heavy. It's not going to hurt you, but you have to understand something. Somebody hijacking my profile picture to say something that's not true. Excellent. What can we do, guys? It's the internet. Anyway, the next things I'm about to tell you, don't do all of them, okay? Do one of them. The best and quickest way to decalcify and defluoridate the pineal gland is, one, get your magnesium, K2, and D3 supplements. And two, one of these, increase your curcumin in your diet. turmeric, cumin. Season it, curry, like curry foods, okay? Tamarind. Now, tamarind has fluoride in it. That's the weird thing about tamarind. Tamarind has fluoride in it, but it also helps pull it out. So please do more research into tamarind and the effects it might have on you. And please, as always, consult your physician. Let them know what you're going to do. I'm not a physician or a nutritionist, but right? Neem powder. You want to detox fast? Neem powder. It's so bitter you think you've just eaten something you shouldn't have eaten. Very small amounts of neem powder with a lot of water during the day will pull everything bad out of your body, right? So if you want to detox quickly, do a detox in general. Because there's another thing, as a lot of the times the reason anything gets detoxified or toxified and doesn't get it out is because the whole body's toxified. So if you start detoxifying any part of your body, that more clean area is going to operate more efficiently. The body wants to detox all the time. It's the issue that we're doing so many things to stop it from being able to do its natural process. It's just like with mental health. Your mind wants to be happy, but it's just so inundated with so many stress and tasks, it's log rolling. It's pushing off 50% of your stress to tomorrow and only getting to 25% of that tomorrow, and then pushing 75% off the next day, that kind of thing. So if you want to detox any part of the body, you just detox any part of the body, because that is going to work better to detox the rest, and it's going to have an exponential effect. Yeah, neem, Neem. Again, look, consult with a physician, do research on neem powder. Just don't take my word for it. And if you're going to start with neem powder, use a very, very small amount. Use a quarter dose. Okay? But neem powder and curcumin, tamarind's a strange one because people say it works specifically for fluoride, but I also know that there's fluoride in tamarind, but it might be in a different form where it moves through and attracts the other fluoride to pull it out. That might be the science behind it. I have to do a little more research on tamarind, so I'm only half recommending that. But neem powder, cumin, lots and lots of water, nascent iodine, right? Cilantro. And then remember, magnesium, K2, D3. A lot of times you can get a K2, D3 combo supplement. So it's 2 in 1. And then you get your magnesium. And Shilajit. I'm still working out exactly why it works, but I took Shilajit for a week and I was certain my circadian rhythm was improved. More happy during the day, fell asleep quicker at night, better dreams. If those 3 things happen, if I start taking a supplement, I know that my pineal gland is being helped. It has to. So Shilajit. Liquid chlorophyll, absolutely. That's also something we're going to be talking about in the class, is liquid chlorophyll. We just had some today in a nice little beet and red juice drink. So yeah, that's how you do it fast. And then do a lot of pineal gland meditation. And we've got a lot of cool meditations coming out that are going to really give you a lot of cool, it's a symbol and linguistic communication. The meditation puts you in a deeper state, closer to the part of your mind that does that work. And then you give it symbolic language to explain what you need it to do. And then you have faith and believe, like Christ says in Gospel of Thomas, that the work will continue to be done and it will be finished. And that you don't have to continuously think about it. You just have to put the intention forth and have the faith the size of a mustard seed that it will occur. And then, like a bird, set it free in your hands and let it flap away and do the work for you. And so spending a decent amount of time meditating. How long would I fast for? Let's say if you're a person that's never fasted before, fast for half the day first. Do that for a week. Remember, increasing water intake. And when you're eating more nutrient-dense foods. Because if you're fasting, but then, the first meal you get is McDonald's, you're going to feel you're going to feel worse. Okay? So when you're fasting, increase your essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. Love you too. Love all you guys for all the love you send. Thank you very much for everyone here. So, sorry, I've been looking at this one for a while. I've been answering the question on this one, but I'm sure it's relevant to everybody. Start off, yeah, like I said, half the day, which kind of means don't eat when you get up. Let your stomach wake up. The next thing I would recommend is a sort of intermittent fasting window. And so a great thing that I did for a while that you will burn fat like nobody's business. I wouldn't eat till 10 o'clock a.m. and I'd stop eating by 4 p.m. Incredible. So you do this for a couple weeks until you get used to that. You have a really, really early dinner. You don't need food past 5, 6 o'clock anyway, right? You do that for a couple weeks, you get real comfortable. Then you do your first 24-hour. Then you wait a week and you go for your first 48. Then you wait 2 weeks and you go for your first 72. And if you're liking it and it's feeling good, increase it as you like, but again, consult your physicians, right, to make sure it's safe or whatever. But that's how I would do it. It'll take 2 months. Take 2 months to get to the point where you can do a 3-day fast with just water and follow the steps I just gave. All right, folks, that's the hour. It's been wonderful having you guys here. Everything's sort of being reorganized on the website in like the flow of things. I'm trying to get back into the swing and flow. I've been taking a lot of time off, just relaxing, because the last 3 years of just constantly being here in the culture war and everything, Mark's need a little bit of a layback break, but we're reorganizing everything. So like, we're going to know more of a schedule about when we do lives, what we're doing on the website, what we're still going to be doing just on social media. And so you'll get a better idea of that soon. But like I said, if you're really interested, you should come to the class. Yeah, it's a few bucks, but it's ridiculously cheap for what you're getting. You get the whole class and you get the 15-page guide. And then you can rewatch that class whenever you want. And you can leave it halfway through it and just watch. If you don't, you're not worried about doing the question and answer, you can just buy the class and watch it later. It's a 3-hour class that you'll be able to rewatch whenever you want, take notes, et cetera, et cetera. And you get the awesome 15-page guide that gives you all the things that you need. And if we revise the guide, we'll send it back out to you if we add more to it. It's gonna be a great class. I'm really excited about it. We're just trying to get all the people that have already purchased, make sure they sign in or whatever. Some people won contests as well. And if you become a member and you send the message, grass tastes good, grass tastes bad. As long as it says something with grass, I'll know it's you. We're gonna give you a couple credits on the website toward going to class if you want. But if you're not in a place to be able to shell that out, know that we're going to be doing a lot more pineal gland content on all the channels. It's going to be the main focus for like 2 months, and then a little bit of defense against the dark arts, a little Kundalini awakening, and a lot with lucid dreaming and astral projection. Remember, pineal gland is foundation. Once we figure out how to work out the pineal gland so it's running healthy, we can talk about Kundalini awakening because we'll be prepared for it. We can talk about lucid dreaming and astral projection because you literally need the pineal gland to function properly, because lucid dreaming and astral projection is all about dimethyltryptamine, produced and metabolized in the appropriate amount to get you there, right? The monk said, the lesser lights. The astral projection is like a layer below the lesser lights, the farthest you can go without not coming back type thing. So that's what's headed for the rest of the summer. And so there's a real method to the madness. Pineal gland first, talking a little bit about spiritual defenses, because once you open up those windows, you're going to see stuff that might overwhelm you. So it's really important to understand what's good, what's bad, what's in between, what's just in your head, what you need to not fear, what's actually showing you pieces of your own shadow, so you're just afraid of some scary things in yourself, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that's it, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be having more content. Please, if you haven't already, become a member on the site. 60 seconds. It's free. There's tons of groups. We have almost 200 people there now, and it's just a good place to hang out. We're developing an app, our own app. We have an app now, but it's through the website. We're going to be trying to develop our own app And we're going to try to have a group chat function like a Discord or something within that. It's a work in progress, but there's still messaging and there's still group chat, like group forum type chat, like Facebook. And so if you're looking for a spiritual community that's really geared toward what we do here and you love that, it's a cool place to connect with other people around the world, right? And like I said, membership is free. You accrue free credits if you do want to end up getting something. It's our way of saying thank you. And it's just a cool place to be with a lot of fun people. And we make random appearances. I'll do comments. I'll make a lot of videos based on questions they ask in the groups as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. As always, thank you for all the support, all the cool stuffs in the links in the bios. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys soon. That's one, that's two, and that's number 3 here.